Welcome to the Healing Voices podcast. Joining me today is Tanya Chadda, who is a counseling psychologist, a psychotherapist, and a shadow work therapist. Welcome to the podcast, Tanya. How do you feel to be here?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to unfold a lot of layers of therapy and emotions. So thank you for the opportunity.
I was really wanting for you to be on this seat and really voice your opinions out because the kind of discussion that I have planned that you're going to put out your opinions on, I have not had those sort of discussions. So I am really happy and excited to dive into the conversation.
Great.
Okay, so is this your first time or you have had such experiences before?
I've been to a podcast before, but I feel every conversation unfolds different layer, different topics, and it touches different hearts.
Right. So, क्या सोच के आए हो? Is there any particular thought that you are going to voice out, or is it like whatever goes with the flow?
So, one thing that I would like to mention is that whoever is listening to this, you will resonate with something or other, and if you do, just be assured that you're not alone.
Right. That's so sweet. And so, how long have you been working in this field? Because whenever I ask this question, that how has the journey been for you? This is such a far-sighted field and such a vast field that the answers are very subjective. Everybody has their fair share of goods and bads happening to them in this field. So, how has the journey been for you in this industry?
It's been great. The best part of this journey is when you see the change, when you get that positive feedback from the client, and when you see things are working, tables are turning around. So I feel it was more of a calling for me than just a career option. And
Why would you say that? How was it like a calling for you?
because when we work with people for in therapy or psychological issues, this is something which is not seen. I mean, there is no thermometer to diagnose. People don't know this is happening, and they usually feel that when you go to therapy, you have to give the control to somebody else, you have to hand it over.
Right.
But what we actually do is we help them learn to be independent, help them rule their own life, run their own life, and make their own decisions.
Right.
So the change that you see, the change in narratives that we see, is something which is very beautiful.
So, any personal experience that really pushed you into this field?
Yeah,
if you want to share.
I've been to therapy myself, and I think whatever I'm doing, however I am right now, is because of people who helped me when I needed it the most. So I don't feel shy, scared, or embarrassed about it. And even if I need tomorrow, I would love to go back to therapy.
So, how was your journey from that side of the table to here now? Was that the thing that really pushed you into this field?
I was anyway working with people.
Okay.
But yeah, it pushed me to, just stick to this majorly. So now my major area of concern is therapy. Earlier I was into social work as well, women empowerment, sex education. But now this is something that I've been focusing on like completely.
Okay, that's great. So you are a woman, you are a professional, and you're also married, so you are a wife. So how was the transition psychologically for you from being unmarried and entering this profession and then finally being married and managing both the things? So what was the transition like, and how did your psyche change from transitioning from one role to another? Because there was only addition of roles, right?
Yeah.
You have your responsibility, then you have your career responsibility, and then finally a family to handle. So how did your psyche change through all these years?
So I would say that you're a free bird, specifically before marriage.
Right.
Right? You can just do whatever, however. But now, after marriage, things change drastically. You have to focus on other people, their requirements, their needs, how to keep doing your work without disturbing the cycle of the house. So it is a lot of load, I would not deny, and there are distractions as well. Priorities change, but I think I'm enjoying it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
I'm
nice.
happy with whatever I'm doing, however I'm doing, and how much I'm doing.
Okay, but if we talk about the changes in your psyche, would you want to like say something or add something on that? That how does the psyche of the woman change when she transitions from only handling herself and then her profession and now three things altogether?
So, there's one thing that I usually speak about, and a lot of people resonate with it. We come from a society where we are taught to do things in a certain way, in a certain manner, and frankly, when we are not married, like I'll give my example only. Before marriage, I used to criticize my mother कि आप क्यों कर रहे हो ऐसे, क्यों कर रहे हो इतना, you know, prioritize yourself. But eventually, what I've realized is that it's just inbuilt in you, and you repeat those patterns even if you learn from your mistakes, but you do reach there. So you know, there are situations where I feel that I'm becoming my mother in the relationship
Right.
or in the marriage. You know, your personal you know, things that you want, things that you need, or your desires, at times it takes a back seat. Your priorities drastically change, which does impact you. But I think eventually, if your partner is supporting, it's worth it.
Okay, so you ended the previous question, and I have a following question with that. That what is the role of your partner in this profession particularly, because this profession takes a lot from you, right? Professionally, emotionally, personally. So how has that marriage sustained by his, you know, what was his role in your profession, and how did you manage all these years?
So, my partner has been very supportive, and you know, he knows boundaries, he knows where and how much he needs to help and support emotionally, obviously, and he knows when I need a break, when I'm agitated, and how to handle my mood swings, or maybe, you know, if I'm feeling overwhelmed after a session, what would cheer me up. So, not putting pressure on it, but helping release it is very important. I feel when you know that whatever happens, this is your safe space. This is a space where you can go to, and things are going to be fine there. So I think that is the role. Being a safe space for a therapist is very important. That you have a safe space for yourself.
Right. So do you think that you like the role he plays? Are you able to justify that role for him? Because our field is anyways very very you know, it takes a lot from us throughout the day. So how are you psychologically in the evening when you come back from work, or when you get over with your work, and then he needs that space and that role from you?
So I usually cook, I bake, and I try to make things that he loves eating, and we both are foodie. So yeah, something watching something interesting together, having dinner together, and maybe scrolling reels together. This is also something that we do.
Okay. And you know, because of the work that we do, and maybe your husband also, whatever profession he's into, there are very possible chances to have frictions in your marriage because of the work, right? Because work is like every time our number one priority. We sometimes take our relationships and our families for granted, that can still be sorted, but work is number one.
Yeah.
So sometimes it causes a lot of frictions between the partners and in families. So how do you handle that at home?
I don't think I've ever experienced that, because both of us respect our work equally, and we respect each other's work as well. So work is priority, and we respect, you know, to let each other work when we want to. So I've never had such an experience where there's a friction because you're not available. It's just that you have to manage sometimes, shuffle up things here and there, and know what's important when.
Right. Okay. अगर आपको chance मिले to talk to your younger self before marriage, and now because you've lived all these years past that, anything that you would want to tell her, because now you understand psychology even better, before and after marriage, what could have, you know, what could you have done better earlier to not be in this position right now? So any one message for your younger self?
I would tell my younger self to maintain boundaries, to not lose self esteem, to prioritize herself, and know when to end.
Any other thing? In what regard would you say all these things?
In relationships, majorly, we keep on doing so much in relationships, especially when you enter into a new house or a
Yeah.
new family. At times, you forget what boundaries are. So, I feel there is a limit to everything, and you should know your space. And the first thing that you should respect is your space.
Right. So now you
So,
think you understand that
I
little
do
more.
understand that really well, and I know, where I can tell the other person to stop because I'm not liking it, I'm not appreciating it, even if it's a joke. I mean, it happens with our friends also. At times, you crack jokes here and there, but you don't like it. It's like, ये limit cross हो रही है. This is something which I don't accept.
Right.
So now I have developed a habit of letting people know that I don't accept this and I don't like it. So stop it.
So I was reading researches I see randomly. So I got to know, I read one research where they say that it was a research on adult guilt, right? So this was a very new perspective that I read, and I really wanted your opinion on this. So they say that women generally have guilt, like post marriage and post starting a family. Women generally have guilt about their families and their children, while the males have guilt around the financial aspect of the house and their relationships. So how would you explain this thing?
So, it's coming from different generations that the roles have been assigned, and how much, however, you do, it's never sufficient. You do 10 things correct, it's great. You do one thing wrong and you're declared wrong. So men, as much as they provide, it's never sufficient. Similarly for women, there's a lot of load that you take mentally, emotionally, physically, with sleep specifically, when after the postpartum phase, the sleep issues, the anxiety, or the rest that you used to get before marriage during your menstrual cycles, everything changes drastically, which do trigger hormones as well. Again, these hormones lead to a lot of emotions, overwhelming emotions, anxiety.
Right.
So not being able to manage or pushing yourself too much to manage is also something that is passed on from generations, but it also, everybody has their own experiences. So we follow patterns. We are actually blueprints of our parents. So we follow patterns of our parents, what they do. For men, mostly that I have seen is fear of finances. Even if you're doing good, even if you're doing great, there's a lot of imposter syndrome in men. That what if I don't have it tomorrow? What if I'm not able to provide tomorrow? What if I'm not able to build whatever I want to tomorrow? So
What is the source of this fear in men and women both?
I feel that the patterns that they have seen, that they have lived before marriage, and obviously the new experiences that adds on to it.
So
And-
do you think that it is modeled at home and that is what you in a way copy and then behave like?
Reciprocate, yes. So you reciprocate whatever it is, and when you see there's a lot of competition, right? If you compare your kids with other kids, which a lot of parents do, or a lot of people poke in your personal life कि उसने तो ऐसे करा, वैसे करा, इतना करा, उसका बच्चा तो पतला है, उसका बच्चा तो मोटा है. However, people comment, right? So you don't have to let it hamper you,
Right.
and accept yourself, your family the way you are.
So where does this self neglect come from?
This self neglect, I feel, comes from the pressure of providing. मैंने नहीं किया तो कौन करेगा? मेरी तो responsibility है.
Right.
मैं अपना काम किसी और पे कैसे छोड़ दूँ? And then I see people are isolating themselves. It's becoming very difficult for them to ask for help.
So is it more of an external pressure than an internal pressure?
I feel it's a mix of both, because the external pressure is impacting the internal pressure,
Right.
and obviously subconsciously you store all that data. You show yourself to be the strongest person, but eventually deep down it does impact everyone.
Right.
So, what I could suggest here is instead of suppressing it, voice it out.
Hmm. And how can a woman do it and how can a man do it? Because women express things in different ways. Males express it in different ways. So how can you differentiate between how they can express and really release those emotions?
I don't. I would not say that it has to be different for men or women. Both men and women needs to respect their boundaries. Need to respect them for doing and providing whatever they are, and not feeling guilty about taking space or rest for themselves. Overlooked, burnout, and when you just keep going, it is going to impact somewhere or other.
Right.
So accept that you're a human being, and it is okay if you're not able to provide 100%.
So before going directly into it, I want you to explain to our audience what it means when we as therapists say that parents have the capabilities of transferring their traumas to their children, like the generation passing down of generational trauma. What is it? How would you explain it to your audience in a simple language?
So as I mentioned before, we are actually blueprints of our parents. Everybody is, right? So trauma can show up in different ways. It could show up in anxiety, in fear, procrastination, perfectionism, even imposter syndrome. And I would say in families where kids have faced or they've seen trauma, so this feeling is stuck with them, and it is very difficult to voice out, to even accept that this is happening.
Do the person who has that trauma pass down from their parents? Just say if I have a certain feeling that is passed down to me by my parents, how can I be aware of that it is not something that has really been born in me, but then it was passed down to me? So what are some signs that our body shows that this is a generational trauma, and if you recognize it, you can actually break the cycle?
Yeah, so it can show up in different ways, like eventually when you start noticing your own patterns, and you don't need a therapist to do that.
Right.
You can simply start noticing your patterns, and I've had so many clients telling me that ये तो मेरी मम्मी को भी होता था, ऐसे तो मेरे पापा भी करते थे. So when you start to resonate your symptoms with your parents that you have seen growing up, this is something which you don't want to pass on. And then you realize that this is the time when I need help, when I need professional assistance to break it.
Right. So how can it be done? If you have recognized the patterns, maybe the fears in the form of anxieties, some traumas, how can the cycle be broken by you?
The cycle could be broken by different therapies that we use. We address it, we apologize to it, we show compassion to it, we even show some love to it. We try to heal the inner child, we try to heal the parent.
Because you just mentioned that there's a difference in the behavior, that how we behave with ourselves is way more strict than how we behave with others. So why do you think that happens? Why do we keep our own selves at a gunpoint, and when the same situation comes with the other person, our behavior is way more calm and sweet? So why is that difference?
I think it comes from an unsaid expectation that we have from ourselves, and also a lot of patterns that we absorb or we develop growing up, that we see growing up, that this is how it's supposed to be and मैं तो कर ही लूँगी. So this question resonates with me also, like a lot. बहुत लोग भी मुझे बोलते थे कि इसको तो कुछ भी बोल लो, इसको फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता. But this is not right. फ़र्क पड़ता है, बुरा लगता है. We just keep suppressing it because there's this image that we want to present to everybody about ourselves, and we just prioritize that image so much that we keep suppressing or even killing our emotions.
Do you think more than presenting an image to others, हमें अपने आप को एक image में रखना है about ourselves?
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Is that the reason?
You are your priority. So if you are not prioritizing yourself, you're not prioritizing anybody else. It's a lie.
And that is why we are way more stricter with ourselves.
with ourselves to be that perfect self.
Right,
And we don't have to be perfect. I don't think anybody is perfect. No one is.
right. Okay, so you also practice shadow work, right? And this is, I think, a very, very new concept and a treatment modality. So, what is shadow work? Like, in a layman language, what is shadow work?
Shadow work is recognizing different parts of you, different, emotions of you, different parts of your life where you pick up and you start working. There are a lot of archetypes that we work upon in shadow work. For example, an archetype of a victim or an addict.
Archetype, what is archetype for
Is
our
a
audience to-
personality. It's like
Okay.
a mini you, right? So, I am an addict, but I'm not only an addict. I'm also
Okay.
a human being. I'm other things as well.
Right.
So there are a lot of journals, there are exercises, visualization techniques that we use to work on it, and it's like a narrative that is built, and you keep resonating with it, you keep questioning yourself, you keep finding out answers for yourself. So why I love practicing shadow work is that it makes you independent.
But what is the basis of this modality?
The basis is to pick up those parts, heal them, question them, and repair wherever is required.
And how does it happen? Like, pick up those parts. How would we pick up those parts? Maybe a therapist also. How would a therapist do that? So
With conversations, like
Okay.
if somebody is saying that I feel distracted all the time whenever I'm doing something, I want to open my phone and scroll Instagram for 5 minutes. Or maybe if the other person is saying that this always happens to me, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, everybody criticizes me. So what I could see is that in the first situation it is an archetype of an addict, but in the
Okay.
second situation it is an archetype of a victim. We also give them options. So it's not just archetypes, there are a lot of meditation, there are a lot of breath work, visualization techniques where we pick up those parts consciously, subconsciously, and we try to find validation. We try to find that if I want to scroll, why? For example, I was reading about procrastination. So usually procrastination comes from fear.
right. Fear.
So
How?
instead of looking at why am I procrastinating, I would rather look at what is the fear behind completing this task.
Okay, that's a very different take on this. Just explain it a little more.
So we keep delaying things. When you're procrastinating, you just don't do it on time. You just say कि आज करूँगा, कल करूँगा, परसों करूँगा. क्यों आप ऐसे कर रहे हो? आप आज क्यों नहीं कर रहे हो? अब लोगों को लगेगा कि ये तो ऐसे ही करता है, ये तो हर चीज़ को टालता रहता है. नहीं, there is something why this person is not doing it when it's required.
So, is it mostly fear in case of procrastination?
Yes, in procrastination it's majorly fear.
And fear of?
It could be anything, not being able to justify the task, not being able to do enough, not being able to do it properly. It could be anything, failing in the task.
Okay.
So it could be anything. I mean, this is something which we'll only get to know once we start answering those questions that are there.
Okay. So, in brief, so shadow work is we start with the conversations, and you as therapists find different personas that the person holds, and once you have listed like the person might have like 5 personas that could be troublesome for them.
Yeah.
So then you pick each one up separately and then
We work on them one by one, and we
Okay.
do all this in therapy. So what my idea of therapy is that if the problem is coming from you, the solution also has to come from you, because it's
Okay.
your life. आप मुझे कितना भी बता दो, I cannot rule you.
right.
I cannot live your life for yourself.
Right. This is, I think, the very basis of counseling as a whole. That people have this perception that therapist के पास जाओ, he will give you the solution and you do that. This is what the mindset people have, but then it is actually not that. It is just we are sitting as a third person,
Yeah.
as an aid to help you find answers.
And there could be indirect suggestions, there could be indirect metaphors or prompts that we could provide.
Right.
But I can't tell you how to live your life. I can't make decisions for you. And even if I do, I'll do it today. What about tomorrow?
Yeah. It won't then take, therapy wouldn't take so long
Yeah.
if we were only helping you.
So we are changing patterns from the, I would say the grassroots level, or from where it's beginning, from where it's coming from. It takes time. It becomes overwhelming as well. That is why we do it in sessions, and then we also try to find out some subconscious patterns of the client which they don't accept or they don't know consciously, using visualization techniques.
Okay. And how much time do these sessions take?
It takes, so I think one archetype would take 3 sessions,
Okay.
3 to 4 sessions, depending upon the client again, how much they want to talk. So they also find a lot of new insights about themselves that they don't know.
We all know, we therapists especially know that कहीं बार ना हमारी body हमें signs देती है when the psychology of the person is not fine, maybe emotionally, mentally, in different ways. How can people who are not from this field, how can they catch those signs and then work on it?
So I usually say that you store all the emotions in your body, and I'm not talking about all the sad emotions or the negative emotions. I'm talking about all the emotions, like that pehla pyar, when there are butterflies that you feel, when you're excited, when you're happy. Similarly, when you're sad, when you're anxious. So people usually complain about pain in lower back, which is not diagnosed. Doctors are not able to help. I've had clients where they've taken steroids as well, but the pain is still there.
Okay.
There is pain in legs, specifically calf muscles.
Okay.
So you've again taken meds, physiotherapy, exercise, you do everything, but it's not going because it's not physical pain.
It is an
medicine.
unvoiced emotion in the body.
It is the trauma speaking. It's the emotion that you've stored.
Okay.
So it's only going to heal when you heal that emotions.
And once a person finds out about that, what further steps should they take to get rid and release that emotion?
Therapy.
Okay.
And then
Even
the therapist would decide what modality, how do you do it. So there are different modalities. Shadow work does. Hypnotherapy also helps.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you just need to find the right person to help you. And you have to accept that this is happening this way.
Right.
That whatever you're going through is not physical.
Hmm.
It is mental, and you need to work on it. And there is a cure. I mean, there's a cure to everything.
Right. In medical field, I'm not talking about the medical field, like the medical field, people have one category of illness that they say it is psychosomatic, right? They just say medicine se kuch nahi ho raha, you've been treated in other ways also. I think it is all in the mind. But I don't think so that is a right perspective. Rather, the right perspective is it is psychological, and exactly that the emotion is stored in that part, right?
So, maybe headaches or shoulder aches is also something that we usually see. Pain in the chest area, around the chest area, palpitations, sweating.
Right. So if there isn't any cure, then it could be an emotion speaking out to your body. Right. Also, for someone who is not a therapist or not from this field, I put out this on my social media also a few months back, that I came across a reel where there was a person who had a panic attack in a public place, right? And the bystanders wanted to help them. They were visibly very, very affected by what the person is going through. But because उनको ना वो basic knowledge या equipment नहीं है कि अच्छा अगर हमारे सामने किसी को ऐसे panic attack, anxiety attack हो रहा है, how should we react to that? And वो खुद इतना पैनिक हो जाते हैं कि उस घबराहट में ना वो चीज़ बहुत ज़्यादा इंटेंसिफाई हो जाती है. So what would you tell them कि बहुत basic ways in which they can help that person who is having a panic or an anxiety attack?
I would say that give them space, let them breathe, help them breathe, and let them know that they're safe.
Because what people generally do this, they'll kind of hug you to give you that comfort, because I don't think so at that time the person wants to be touched in any way. you know, they just feel very uncomfortable. And you know, when it happens in a public place, it is very, very embarrassing also.
Yeah.
You know, for us, because it is still not normal to be having these sort of illnesses.
I've heard experiences where people thought that it's a heart attack. So they rushed emergency में दवाइयाँ दी हैं, सब किया है, ECG हुआ है, everything is fine. So I mean, it's good that you take care of yourself, you rush to a doctor, but the first thing that I would recommend is to give them space, air to breathe.
Right. And see, anyways, एंजाइटी अटैक और पैनिक अटैक होना इज़ द एक्सट्रीम केस. मुझे लगता है उससे पहले ना बहुत बार बॉडी साइंस दे चुकी होती है आपको कि सम थिंग्स माइट नॉट बी फाइन, एंड व्हेन यू डोंट एड्रेस दोस देन यू माइट, यू नो, द बॉडी वुड रिएक्ट इन अ वे दैट इट इज़ एन अटैक ओनली. तो वो कैसे साइंस हो सकते हैं जो लोग बहुत पहले ही स्टेज पे, यू नो, दे कैन गेट टू नो, दे बिकम अवेयर एंड देन एड्रेस इट, सो दैट द सिचुएशन डजंट इंटेंसिफाई सो मच कि वो पैनिक अटैक में ही कन्वर्ट हो जाए.
You start noticing patterns that you're feeling sad.
Only sadness?
No, so you're losing interest in doing things.
Okay.
Right? You're not feeling safe, you're not feeling comfortable. You feel like running away or not stepping out at all.
Okay.
These could be certain signs that things are not going in the right direction. And I feel panic attacks or anxiety attacks happen when there's a lot of suppression of emotions as well.
Right. ये ना एक ट्रेंड और एक जेनजी लैंग्वेज ज़्यादा हो गई है, बट पीपल डोंट अंडरस्टैंड द कोर एसेंस ऑफ what is the body asking for to you, you know, right now, what your emergency aid is required, but you are not providing that, rather you are sort of replacing it with something else,
and it's not going to help you, it's going to make your situation worse.
Right. Right. See, what one emotion do you feel people confuse with love? Is it emotional, like emotional dependency and love are like two things that people don't understand, that there's a difference, but there is a big difference. So how would you explain that?
I've been working with a client, and you know, after they broke up, which they had to, I mean, it was a very toxic relationship. We usually see this in toxic relationships. So it's not the love, it's the habit or the need, or you know, the perception of a partner. So we usually say that it's better to be alone than being around toxic people or wrong people, right? But your comfort zone is with that toxicity. Your comfort zone is being with that person. So even if things are going wrong, you don't realize, you just keep going and going. But then again, कभी तो वो बलून पूरा पानी से भर जाएगा और फूट जाएगा.
Why do you think people are still comfortable in that toxic environment? Maybe in friendships also. I'm not saying it only in relationships. But then what leads on people still that they still cling on to and stay in that environment with such people?
Habitual, because they become habitual to it. It's like a part of their life. So, you know, as we were talking about generational trauma, passing on emotions in different generations, we have lived in that environment. We've grown up accepting that environment कि ऐसे ही होता है, ये तो ऐसे ही करना है. So you become habitual to it, and it kind of becomes your comfort zone that you feel ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं.
Is it also not being marked as or labeled as someone who is not in a relationship? You know, that stigma कि मेरे तो सारे friends हैं, मैं क्यों नहीं? So that thing also attracts even toxicity also.
Yes.
But you should at least be able to say that I have someone in my life.
Yeah. So, you know, you feel that this is my safe space, but it's actually the opposite.
Right. And coming from you, right, like just now mentioned safe space, you are the founder of My Safe Circle. And what is the ideology behind having that name? Is there any personal experience, or what came into your mind when you had this name decided for your brand?
So during COVID, I started my practice as a psychologist, and I was working with MUNs, Small United Nations, schools, colleges, and different NGOs as well. So what is that one thing that I noticed is that everybody was at home,
Okay.
but nobody was feeling safe.
Right.
आप अपने ही घर में अपने ही रूम में सेफ नहीं हो, आप अपने ही फैमिली अपने ही लोगों के साथ सेफ नहीं हो. So I wanted to create that safe space for everyone, where you have that safe space for yourself. Now this could be in therapy, this could be with a friend, this could be an open space where you randomly come, you went out, and you don't have to disclose anything. You just come, you went out, and just be a part of the community.
And what are some ways to help people feel that freeness in their lives?
Boundaries.
Boundaries.
Period. You start maintaining boundaries, you start respecting your own boundaries, 90% of things are going to work for you.
Would you generalize it for everyone?
I don't think that I should generalize it for everyone, but I think for majority of the population, yes.
Okay.
Because I think in India, I'm not talking about the Gen Z population because they know really well, but you know, apart from them, there's still a lot of people who show up, and we see that if they would have maintained a boundary here, this would not have happened.
Okay, so home for everyone is like their kingdom, right? It is like my sanctuary to be. How can we make like everyone, all the members, how can they make it as a very, very emotionally safe space?
So I think conversations, open-ended conversations, respect for each other, and empathy.
Okay.
These are the pillars for a happy, healthy family. So this is something which I generally recommend, and I try teaching to my clients, to my students as well, that we listen to somebody to answer to them. Instead, we should listen to people to listen to them.
Do you think that is what separates normal people from therapists, that we listen to listen and not to answer?
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
And that is where empathy comes from.
Right. In the end, I just want your opinion on what is healing for you, and I want you to write it on this and tell it to our audience. What is healing to you? This is just a segment that I do with every guest on this podcast. So anything, it is very personal to you.
Okay. So for me, it's majorly a transition from an uncomfortable space to a comfortable space.
Okay.
Where you are the ruler of your life.
No, that's really sweet. And anything in the end that you would like to tell somebody who's watching you but have not had the courage to voice what they want to say? Anything to them? Just to motivate them and encourage them to be open.
I would like to say that we should start prioritizing ourselves. We should start being more compassionate to ourselves, and your first love has to be you.
And I think that all comes down to accepting
yourself the way you are, and cherishing yourself.
Right. Thank you so much. How was the experience? I had a very, very lovely conversation with you, and we really touched down the topics I don't think I have touched down in my past episodes. So that is also the reason I was very, very excited and looking forward to having you on the podcast. How was it for you?
It was great. I loved it, and yeah, it was an amazing experience. I hope our conversation is going to help people.
Hopefully. Thank you so much.
Thank you.